everyone, it's Alex from Following Alex, and today I'm doing a super special video where I review the top self-help, spirituality, and productivity books that you've probably seen everywhere. I spent my whole summer reading them because I'm on this spiritual, finding yourself, kick myself in the butt journey. And I read these books. I'm going to let you know how I found them, what I think about them, and if you should read them. So I'm gonna review them in the order I read them because I actually read them in a certain order on purpose. I'm just gonna give you an idea of all the books I'm going to review. Editing Alex, insert them here. So let's get right into it. I don't want to waste any time. But if you've read any of these books, you have opinions or questions, always feel free to leave a comment or head to my Instagram. But until then, let's get into it. Book number 1 is Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Okay, I've listened and heard people say Eckhart Tolle and Eckhart Tolle. They wrote The Power of Now. So this book has actually been on my to-be-read list for years. In fact, I was cleaning out a USB like this week and I found a ebook copy of The Power of Now from when I was in university, probably 2016, which is crazy to me that it has been on my radar this long and I haven't read it. So I read The Power of Now, and what I wanted from it was basically a spiritual awakening, or at least be that first step into this journey that I'm on, and it definitely delivered that. There was a sentence in the book that I read. As soon as I read it, something actually clicked, and I'm not just saying that, something actually clicked in my brain and changed the way I thought about everything. It is that powerful, and it's wrote in such a beautiful way. It's conversational, so it's basically the author answering questions. That's what I like about it, because when you learn about anything to do with spirituality, you have questions. It is such a good book. There are so many things that you can take from that book. So if you are somebody who is looking to start your spiritual journey, if you're somebody who is looking to become more present or learn what it means to be present without just people saying meditate, or if you are just feeling a little bit lost and anxious and stressed, maybe you're trapped in the past, you're anticipating the future, that's kind of where I was. I'm just really stressed out. I read it and it definitely helped that for me. So if you fit any of those categories, definitely pick up this book and read it. So 5 stars, love it. So next is actually a productivity book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. You've definitely heard of this book. You've had to have heard of this book. Books that get a lot of hype, sometimes they deserve it and sometimes they don't. But I did want to read it because I've been having trouble building good habits, but somehow working really good at keeping those bad habits happening. So I wanted to read something to offer me some kind of solution. I love this book. It is probably going to be in my top 10 recommended to anybody ever. If I could give it over 5 stars, I would. It's written beautifully. It's clear and concise. It gives you actionable things you can do. It uses graphs and tables where needed. It's perfect. It is such a great book. And the best part about this book is it's not about hustling. It's not about you have to be the best, you have to do this, you have to sacrifice this. His main message is so clear. As long as you're a little bit better every day, as long as you make choices that are in favor of yourself and the person you want to be, as long as you're 1% better every day, you are making a huge difference in your life. I cannot tell you how great that made me feel. I cannot tell you how much comfort that brought me. It was just a really nice theme of that book, and I really recommend it. So if you're somebody who's struggling with building habits and routines, read this book. If you are somebody who is constantly chasing being perfect, constantly chasing this one hit of success, if you think it's just gonna happen on this one chance, this one opportunity, read this book. And if you're somebody who's close to giving up, if you've been working really hard and it's not happening for you and you're feeling just unmotivated and uninspired, read this book. It will reignite you, and I love it for that. The next book I read, How to Be Yourself, Quiet Your Inner Critic, and Rise Above Social Anxiety. This book is more of a self-help book. Ellen Hendrickson has a PhD. They're completely qualified to talk about this topic, which makes this self-help book a little bit more than a self-help book. It's not just somebody giving you their life experience, it's someone who also knows the science. I wanted to read this book because I definitely struggle with social anxiety and confidence issues. I love interactions and connections and people. I love people, but I have such a hard time putting myself out there, and even when I'm in a social situation, I find that I'm so awkward that I almost come off as cold or dismissive. I don't know. Anyway, I read this book and I'm only going to give it a 4 stars, and I'll tell you why. So it has a lot of great information, a lot of information you can use, and it really explains to you why social anxiety is a thing and how it's not actually that strange. It's a really good read. It offers a lot of resources and information. However, I just don't like the way it's written. My pet peeve is when a book can be more concise and short. I'm very picky about that. So this book had a lot of examples, which for some people, they really need examples to learn. The problem is I found that the examples and like the tips and advice and message were all muffled together. Instead of it being like information, example, advice, it was like information, a little bit of the start of the story, a little bit of advice. Like it was trickled in. And for some people, they can learn like that. Not really for me, but of course, like it's still really good. It's just not my style of writing. If you are somebody who suffers from social anxiety or just have a hard time being in social settings, or especially after the pandemic, like you are finding yourself a little bit more anxious when you go out, read this book. If you're somebody who doesn't have social anxiety, but you know someone who does, or you hear about it and you're like, what? Anything like that, you should read it because it'll let you be more compassionate and understanding and ultimately more helpful in the situation. It's a lot easier to work together and to just make it a more pleasurable experience. And if you're just somebody who has trouble making friends and you don't really think it's a social anxiety thing, but you just want to learn more, I still think it's a good read. You don't have to have social anxiety to experience being anxious around new people or new situations. Like anxiety can be a disorder and anxiety can be a feeling. So the next book I read was Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. This book is so great. I really love it. He has a podcast called On Purpose, which it's just so wholesome and empowering. But Think Like a Monk follows Jay Shetty. He left the business world to go become a monk and then came back to be kind of like a life coach and educator and just like a communicator. What I like about his book is it refers to what he's learned through his lessons on becoming a monk, but apply it to real life situations for us that are not monks. And this book came out really recently, so it's just like updated information, and we love a good spirituality, self-help, or anything like that that is recent, because especially with this pandemic and everything happening, this is a whole new ballgame, so it's just really great to have that. And in this book, he actually gives you a bunch of like exercises to do. It's structured beautifully. It gives you a lot of like journal exercises or things to think about, meditation practices. Like it is a hands-on book, so not only can you read it and learn and enjoy it, like he's such a good storyteller, but you can also take it and apply it. So I love a book that offers you something that you can take into the world. If you are somebody who is just on a spiritual journey in general, read this. If you are somebody who needs to do some reflection or shadow work, I think you should read this because you can do the journal exercises and it's your shadow work, it's your reflection, it's what you need to do. And if you're somebody who is just trying to find their purpose in the world, I think you should listen to his podcast and read this book and just kind of follow his whole brand because, man, is it ever inspiring. Okay. The next book is, some of these books have long titles and like I only remember the little ones, so The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, A Practical Guide to the Fulfillment of Your Dreams. Deepak Chopra, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. This book is something I wish I would have read a long time ago, but I'm also glad that I only read these books now because I am definitely ready for them. So The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success is basically telling you the laws of life and how you use them to find success. And success isn't just wealth, it's not just like abundance of money and things, it's also about happiness and purpose and joy. This book is just like a building block that you need for goals, for manifestations. This book I think everybody should read, literally everybody. And I'm saying literally because I actually mean everybody in this case. But what I like most about it is he goes through these 7 laws, he explains them to you, and then there's also a breakdown. Like they give like a nice summary and they also tell you how to act on it, how to use it, how to incorporate it, how to acknowledge it. It's not just giving you the information, it's telling you how to use it. But at the end, what I like most of all is when talking about these 7 laws, he also applies them to the atomic level and how they're just like the basic building blocks of everything we know. And the more you read about and learn about spirituality, the more you understand it's more than just like what we feel. Everything around us has energy, everything has some kind of pull and electromagnetic field. I just think it's really important to learn about that and understand, although we're talking about it in terms of our lives and our purpose and our trajectory, it also actually applies to the environment and the world around us. So if you're on a spiritual journey, read it. If you are alive, read it. If you are not born yet, read it. I just think it's a really good book. The last book I'm reading, we've come full circle now, is Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. So I'm still currently reading this. I'm almost done. This book, I'm not gonna lie, it's heavy. I'm glad I left it to the end because everything I've been learning so far this summer is really tying together. The thing with this book is you need to be ready for it. It's not a book you're gonna read and sit down and smile about, although there are some things that are said that are giving me hope and are questions I have, they're answering them. But this one is more addressing how things are changing, what we're feeling. And I think anybody who is far enough on their spiritual journey where you're confused with how you're feeling and you kind of feel a tug between what you know now but what the world is like, that's the tug I feel. Like I know what I have to do in order to embrace a more spiritual, peaceful life, but just real life is kind of holding me back. I'm like, how can I possibly, be this peaceful or not associate with that when that's not how it works? But then A New Earth clearly informs you how things work. It is very heavy on ego and pain body, that emotional, unconscious part of yourself. The power of now is basically, letting you touch the water with your toes and seeing how the spiritual journey and spiritual awakening feels. And it just opens up new doors for you. And then The New Earth, they throw you off the wharf and they say swim, in a good way. If you are reading that book, you are on your spiritual journey, you are awake enough to have these difficult conversations. The chapters are fairly short, so I just try to read a couple every night. I mix in like a fiction book just because my poor brain needs a little bit of just randomness. But it addresses a lot of questions. Spiritual awakenings are not easy and they're not supposed to be. I'm actually also going to make a video on that because, boy, it can be hard. So I've been reading all these books on an ebook, so I wish that I had paper copies to be like more aesthetic, but you've just been seeing covers. That's what I have to offer. So how do you be spiritual and exist in 2021, basically? And that's what I like about this book is it's answering questions I have, but it is very tough conversations. So this book, so far 5 out of 5. I can't see it getting worse. I can only see it getting better. It's just a tough read because you have to be ready to really think about these things, and it's really going to test you because I even catch myself kind of listening to my ego. If you want to really embrace this journey you're on, you have to reach points of no return. But I definitely recommend these books if you're on a spiritual journey, if you're working on yourself, anything like that. If you have any questions or even recommendations, leave them down in the comments. I'm having a strictly fiction rest of the year. I have a video I'll put here, which is a book haul. This is what I'm mostly going to be reading for the rest of the year. I might get more, I might get less. It depends because I'm doing a master's degree. I gotta study. I hope I inspired you to read some of these books because I am getting a lot out of them. Like, they are teaching me so much about myself. You can get that from a book to teach you about yourself or to inspire you and motivate you. It's a good spirituality, self-help, productivity, whatever book. See you in my next video. Bye.